Britain, Spain, and Portugal had three of the biggest empires back in the day. However, why do Spain and Portugal have very little power or influence on the world stage today, unlike Britain in present day politics? Well, even Britain has zero advantage today, zero influence, zero power. But the continuation of the British Empire, which is the American Empire, is the all powerful entity in the world today. So you could say that the British Empire still is the predominant hegemonic entity in the world in the shape and form of the American Empire. It has morphed into something different, but it's a continuation of the same entity. Okay. So, yeah, you could say that the Anglo Empire continues and still predominates. It is the hegemonic empire in the world today. But Spain and Portugal, well, they don't matter anymore. They are completely marginalized. They simply don't matter geopolitically today. Why is that so? Well, ask yourself this question. In the 18th century, the Maratha Empire was all powerful in India, in the Indian subcontinent. What happened to it? It doesn't even exist anymore. Similarly, the Spanish Empire doesn't exist anymore. The Portuguese Empire doesn't exist anymore. The Spaniards still have their royal family, the crown, so on. It's just a nominal thing. It's a tradition that they are holding on to. In India, we have destroyed those traditions of the royal families, because the royal families were wiped out, most of them, the real ones, in 1857. So the Maratha Empire was so powerful in the entire subcontinent. What happened to it? No power, no influence, no existence today. The Roman Empire was all powerful across the Mediterranean region, across Europe, across North Africa, even parts of West Asia. What happened to it? Gone, right? Look at Italy today. What power, what influence does Italy have today? I'm not trying to make fun of the nation. I'm just giving this example. Okay? The Vikings were super powerful in Western Europe. There was a Viking age, roughly 200 years. What happened? Where's the Vikings today? Sweden, Denmark, Norway. What about these three nations? What power, influence do they have? None. So the answer is that empires rise and fall. Empires rise, empires become powerful, then they decline and they fall. These are cyclical aspects of history. So the Spanish Empire, the Spanish power came, grew, and went. Their policies weren't great. They weren't able to eventually compete with the Anglos, with the English. The same can be said about Portugal and everybody else. So that's why today it's only the Anglo-Saxon Empire that has the hegemony, essentially global power projection capabilities, because they got everything right. Their system of financing their operations and expeditions and their, expeditions of plunder and conquest, they were financed properly. They were great at logistics. They were great at playing the game of divide and rule, divide and conquer, and then rule. They were great at securing trade routes. They were great at securing choke points, geographical choke points. The Spanish and the Portuguese weren't great at this. The Portuguese had this policy, you could say, of just holding on to toeholds of land, footholds of having small footholds of land, on the margins of the trade routes and choke points, like Malacca. The Portuguese had Malacca. The Portuguese had Goa. They had Vasai in Western India, and so on. So they did not ever expand inwards into the land, into the territory of the subcontinent or other parts of the world. The British said, we're gonna create our own kingdoms. We're gonna actually govern land. The Portuguese didn't want to govern anything. They just wanted to trade and plunder. So the Spanish obviously did what the British did, but they were not as efficacious, whatever, as the British. So that's why the British eventually prevailed, and that's why Spain and Portugal are essentially, well, to be very realistic, non-entities geopolitically today.